Hey watch friends, today we're going to check out another offering from the Danish micro brand Henry Archer, and this is their Akva. We previously checked out the Nordsø and Nordlys, and I've been very eager to get this model on camera. So with that, let's go ahead and dive straight in. This comes standard with a 2-year warranty, the same as their other watches. The case, measured from roughly the 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position, is coming in at 40 millimeters dead on. The bezel on my calipers steps down ever so slightly and is coming in at 39.9 millimeters, so essentially flush. The lugs are a strap change friendly 20 millimeters. The lug to lug is coming in right at 47 millimeters on the nose. The total thickness, I get a little bit thicker than their stated spec, but it's coming in at 11 millimeters. However, that is, I suspect, owing to the crystal, and it's still a very thin packaging overall. The crystal itself is a flat sapphire, and it does feature inner AR coating. The movement is a Miyota 9039. For those not familiar with the 9 series, they're excellent movements. This is going to be a high Irby, 28,800 beats per hour, 42-hour power reserve, hacking, hand winding, all that kind of good stuff. The 9039, as opposed to the more common 9015, is the no-date variant. As far as the water resistance, it's coming in at 200 meters or 20 atmospheres of water resistance, plenty respectable for a dive-style watch. The weight, sized to my 6.5-inch wrist, is coming in at 141.5 grams on this bracelet. Really not too bad at all. It definitely does, in my opinion, pretty well disappear on the wrist, and part of that's owing to the comfort that we'll explore further as we go throughout. So with the basic specs out of the way, let's go ahead and get a better feel for this overall model. As far as the colors, there's the coral green that we're looking at today, which is a nice light lime kind of pastel green. But there's additionally a whole slew of other variants. There's a white, a dark green, a dark blue, a purple, a black, a light blue, as well as even a blue meteorite. And there have even actually been different variants that were available previously, but these are the ones as of time of recording. As far as the texture on all of these, with the exception of the meteorite, what you're going to notice is that pronounced wave pattern that's going across and really centers from the dial. It gives a flowing grace to it overall. It's very nicely done. I'm not sure if that's either a stamped or a ball mill cut, but either way, very clean, crisp lines, and it just has a perfect pattern to it. Not too in your face, but it definitely has plenty that you absolutely do notice it. One of the things, though, that's easier to miss is there is kind of a pearlescence that this exhibits. So it has a subtle texture, but additionally, though, it really gets kind of that sheen and almost iridescence like you would get from a pearl. And that's absolutely beautiful. I really love it on this color. Speaking of the color, on this particular dial variant, one of the things that you'll notice across these lighting conditions, though it's even more so in person, is it does have pronounced color shift. Sometimes it's more of like a light lime green, other times it's a little more of a pastel, and I'll bring in a mint dial variant that we can see, as well as some other green options so you can see for coloration there, but it's a really gorgeous color. A lot of times it looks kind of pale or washed out in pictures that I've seen, sometimes it looks oversaturated, and it really runs the gamut for it, but in person, I think it is gorgeous. As far as the dial configuration, you can see that there is printing at the 12 o'clock position with their logo, as well as at the 6 o'clock position with the namesake, as well as the water resistance. With the water resistance, you can see it does have an accent color, which matches the second hand that we'll look at here momentarily. Additionally, though, as you shift out to the chapter ring, you can see that the chapter ring changes up the texture, and it actually gives almost like an inlaid kind of effect there, but a lot of that is just the optics for that, and that's pretty well flush to the center portion of the dial. But that textural shift, it's kind of neat in that not only does it shift the texture, which causes it to play with the light differently, but as part of that, it also causes it to color shift differently from the dial itself, depending on the way the lighting's hitting it. And I really find that adds a nice visual appeal, but it also adds a very interesting pop. Additionally, that does have the white hashes all the way around, and then it does have the accent color matching for that with the numerals as well in your 5-minute increments, and that of course complements the second hand. The numerals themselves do wash out a little bit against the dial. Of course, the hashes do as well, just depending on the way the light's hitting it, but I really think they're well chosen as far as the color. One of the things that's easier to miss, especially in pictures, is this has, as you look at the right above the chapter ring, the inner portion of the case is beautifully polished. This is a full mirror, and one of the things that's so neat about that is not only is it tastefully done and subtle as far as the way it kind of tucks in under there, but that actually gives that full mirror effect. So depending on the angle that you're looking at it at, this actually fully reflects not only the dial, so you get that coloration, but you actually get a faux index that's there as well. So you get the mirror image of the index. It doesn't impact legibility, but gives a really neat visual effect as you catch it at the right angles. I absolutely love that. Shifting over to the hardware, the handset on this is what I would describe as a pill style handset. It is polished and it does have kind of that cathedral line down the middle to break that up with just a basic application there. As far as the second hand, as we already looked at, is on this particular version going to be a nice blue accent color, kind of like a baby blue for that, and I really think it complements the green coloration. It has a nice touch with the dual pill style incorporation. So you have the lollipop, that's a pill, which is a lume accent. You additionally have an accent color tip there, but then as you look at the counterbalance, you can see that that is a pill shape as well. So I think that really ties in and integrates nicely with the both hour and minute hand. Shifting over to the markers, these are applied indexes, and they're going to be a baton style. They are polished as well as they have facets, so you get a lot of nice light play against that dial as well. So great not only for legibility and contrast there with both the lume as well as the facets, but I really think that that gives visual pop. The 12, 3, 6, and 9 being your cardinal markers are larger, but they are nice and I think well balanced as far as the sizing. Both those and the ones in between there I think are chosen well. They don't feel too crowded on the dial to my eye, but they definitely give you nice bold accent for the dive styling. Shifting over to the lume on this is a premium grade or the highest grade BGW9. This actually, performs quite well in my experience. It really gives you loads of pop. It has plenty of endurance across the board for dive styling or not. I think this one's definitely one that you're going to be pleased with overall. Very good application of the lume. Shifting over to the bezel, being a dive style watch, as you'd expect, this does have a unidirectional, it's a 120 click unidirectional bezel. It is going to be a mix of polishing, so you can see the polish on the lip or on the edge here, which it is going to be a wide coin edge kind of design or construction, and we'll talk about that further. Additionally, though, it does shift over to brushing, you can see on the face, which I really think that was a good call. I definitely would not have wanted to see that polishing carry over. I think that would have been a little too blingy for my taste, at least, but that's nicely done with the stainless steel insert. The insert itself, as you can see, has somewhat of a minimalist styling or application for that. So you have your triangle pip at 12 o'clock, and then you just have hashes in the 5-minute increments. So it keeps it clean, plenty as far as usability for a dive style watch, but I like that they didn't go with the extra hashes for the first 15 or 20 like many of them do. As far as the action, let's go ahead and take a listen. You can hear that click, and we're going to talk about this further. As you can see, I'm struggling a little bit. It is harder on camera, but here's that click. Nice tactile click to this overall, but one of the critiques that I'm going to have, and I'm going to give a spoiler for this, let me go ahead and go. It's not as hard as I'm making it look on camera. However, this absolutely is very slippery. So with having that polished edge, it's not real aggressive. The actual bezel itself is not overly heavy. However, it definitely, with this edge, and especially, like I said, it's not quite as hard off camera. However, that's absolutely one of the critiques that I have. This is really hard to get traction onto. It could have come out a little bit further, as well as it could have been a little bit deeper, but we'll talk about that further as we go on. As far as the case itself, the case is incredibly thin. You know, it's hard to pick up or appreciate the scale or perspective that you get here on camera. But that being said, this case, it has a really nice flow to it overall. So you can see that it has a clean application of brushing, and it is exceptionally clean. I really like that aspect. And then it additionally has the polished facets at the top and bottom, which I think help to visually slim it down further as well. But the biggest thing with that is that finishing is just excellent. The actual case flow, you can see it's a relatively basic construction here. Doesn't give that slab feel or vibe to it, despite the fact that it doesn't really have any deep cuts. You can see from the light play that it does have that nice curvature. As far as the downturning, you can see the lugs are very subtle with the downturn. However, they do almost come flush with the case back, and I think it nests nicely on the wrist. So that's well done there as well. As far as the lugs, you can see the lugs definitely have some presence to them. They are a little bit stout as far as the dive styling, which I think it's actually well proportioned. But one of the things that's nice is it actually looks visually very thin with the way that chamfer kind of comes down and widens through that. I think that gives a real nice design aesthetic to that. I enjoy that. As far as the crown side, you can see that there is no integrated crown guard, which again I think keeps with the overall clean and minimalist styling of this watch. The crown itself is coming in at 7.4 millimeters. Being a dive style watch, as you'd expect, it is a screw-in construction. It carries over with that coin edge like we saw on the bezel, so it's a wide coin edge style for the milling. As far as the signature, you can see there that is raised up out of there and kind of polished accent. But one of the things that's really cool is you can see again that accent. So this has, I'm not sure if that's an aluminum, but it looks like an aluminum inlay for that. But that accent color carries over with that blue that we saw on the dial, carries over here. And I really think that's another good visual touch. Very cool. Shifting over to the Caseback, this one, as we've seen on some other models, is held in with screws. So despite being a dive style watch, it's not a screw-in bezel, it's actually held in with screws, which I believe helps them to thin this out, which, as you can see, it is an overall thin Caseback for it, and I think that, especially with having the thin case itself, is really great to see there, because not only does it slim out the overall proportions, but it keeps it from having that kind of flying saucer effect that you can sometimes get. In the middle, you're going to see that there is an exhibition window that is a sapphire crystal there as well, and that highlights the 9039 movement, which you can see has, as we've seen in the past, the rotor with that kind of carbide kind of edge to it, as well as it does have the Henry Archer branding in the middle, and then the Geneva striping that comes standard. Additionally, on the perimeter, you can see that there is a very small milled text that's cleanly applied all the way around. Shifting over to the bracelet. The bracelet on this is tapered from 20 millimeters at the lugs down to 16 millimeters at the clasp, and we'll check out that clasp here momentarily. It does have female end links. It's a basic 3-link construction on this particular version, though some of them do have the option of a beads of rice as well. So it's like an oyster style. The finishing is going to be a brushed finish on all of the main surface, but then on the sides, it does have polished accent as well. So it's actually full polish on the sides of this. So it gives nice contrast there as well. This is held in with pins, which if you do need tools, I'll have a link down in the video description. Do encourage you to pick up a good set so you have that on hand. It's easy enough to change these out. Didn't really have any problems there. As far as the benefit of the pins as opposed to screws is you don't have to worry about them backing out. So yeah, a little more work up front in getting these sized up. However, you don't have to worry about that backing out. On the back, though, it does have quick release spring bars, so that makes it nice and easy with the standard 20 millimeter lugs to put a strap of your choice should you decide to want to change that out. As far as the clasp itself, this is one of the real highlights compared to the original Nordsø that we previously looked at. So they did previously upgrade, including on the updated version of the Nordsø, where this has a very thin toolless micro clasp, but we'll look at the toolless function here momentarily. It's a basic double pusher construction, no fold over or anything. It's signed, it's going to be principally brushed. You can see it does have nice milled accent there as well going down. As you push that open, you can see it does have a milled bridge. And then as far as the toolless micro, at this point we've seen several that have been like this. You can see it is a Christopher Ward or Zellos style here, and that's in the full extended. And then it is ratcheting, so you can just push that in without pushing the button. Nice, clean, smooth operation, no problems with that. The last click on this style is oftentimes hard to do, especially with it folded up, but if you push it down flat, no issues there. But this works very well. One of the things that I really like about this is this one, unlike some of the other ones we've seen in the past, this is a very thin clasp. It's thin in this width, and it's really not too thick overall. Visually on camera off wrist, it always looks a little bit thicker, but this actually disappears nicely, and I think that's an excellent touch. Really glad to see that upgrade. As far as giving an idea of what this looks like on straps, at least with this particular version, you can see it here with an Artem black strap, just to give you a basic idea as to how you can kind of change this up and play with it. This isn't going to be probably the most versatile dial color in the world, but blacks, whites, or even if you can find a complementary light blue like a rubber or something like that, or canvas. I guess actually you probably could go with a bare amount here. Okay, so now that we have a better feel for the watch itself, let's go ahead and bring in some comps. Of course, we've talked about it a fair amount. Here it is next to the Nordsø, and this is one we previously reviewed the blue. This one is the fresh mint color, or the mint green, I believe it's actually called there. But you can see this really has a completely different feel and vibe to it. This one takes on, when you see them next to each other, much more of like a sage or a pastel color. Whereas this one, when it's in isolation, like I said, sometimes it does pick up that subtle like lime green but pastel coloration as well. But this just gives you an idea of those two. Looking at the sides, you can see the Nordsø certainly does have a thinner case, but as we talked about previously, it does then result where you have what feels like a little bit of a thicker back to it. Personally, I prefer the proportions of this. The bezels are pretty comparable, but then when you look at the mid case, I prefer that slight thickness to the mid case over the ultra thin mid case here for a similar total thickness, but I like the way that this Caseback nests down in. So this really is exactly what I was hoping for with that. Personally, I probably am partial and would like to see the Beads of Rice style on this version, but the 3-link actually works very well, very comfortable, so no complaints there. Bringing in here, now this is a Zelos Mako GMT, and this is the Malachite dial. I partly want to bring this in because not only for the green coloration, so just give you an idea there of 2 very different green dials, but additionally though, they just actually did a special edition version with the microbrand store, so it's only available through there, where it is the Nordsø that you can get with the Malachite dial, so the one we just looked at a moment ago. And then here it is next for another 40mm watch. This is the RZE Endeavor. Just to give you an idea here as far as sizing and proportions, this is a titanium watch here, but you can see just overall giving a similar sizing. The RZE does, to me, have a little more of a visual presence to it as far as the dial size, but I think part of that's owing to this chapter ring differentiation, but I really like the way that this presents here. Alright, so now that we have all that out of the way, let's go ahead and wrap things up with my personal view of the positives, some critiques, as well as the summary. First, for the positives, I've got to say, this is next level finishing. The price point, this is coming in at $499 as of time of recording. And for that, you not only do you get good specs overall, there are some that certainly do beat it in terms of specs like hardened coating, those kinds of things. However, as far as the finishing, this thing is incredible for what you're getting at an under $500 watch. It might be hard to appreciate on camera, but everything is just so stinking clean for that. The brushing, the polishing, every aspect. Check out these end links. Look at that integration there with the end links. There's no gap. That curvature is absolutely perfect for that. I mean, just really, really impressive for this. Again, it's one of those things that it might be easier to appreciate in person than it is on camera, but it just feels like extreme quality. The use of color. One of the biggest things that I think Henry Archer does exceptionally well, I like their designs, but their use of color. They've got a full range of color, but the colors they choose, the actual tones, the way that they play with the overall watches are just impeccable. That is one of the things that has always drawn me to the brand, and this one absolutely does not disappoint. In fact, it far and away exceeds expectation here as far as how pretty this color is in person. The dial pattern, those flowing waves, I love that. You know, kind of Omega type effects there with like an Aquaterra. But that overall aesthetic, I think it's very well incorporated. I like the way they incorporated the logo, the text, all that stuff. I think everything's very clean, just extremely well done. Excellent there. And then finally, the comfort. You know, this 3-link, oftentimes I find oyster bracelets aren't the most comfortable in the world. This one, though, is actually excellent here. This is very comfortable, a little bit too tight with that toolless micro there. But that being said, this one I find to be, it drapes perfectly around the wrist. It contours nicely. It hugs. Across the board, no complaints there in terms of comfort. But what about the critiques? Let's go first with the one we've already talked about, and that is the bezel. It is definitely too slippery. You know, that polished accent, while I think it's a nice visual touch, between the fact that this is relatively flush with the case here, I got a hair under, but being flush with the case, being a relatively smooth milling for that coin edge, had they gone sharper and or not polished or some combination thereof or extended out slightly, one way or another, I think they could have easily improved this. However, that, as you saw, it is definitely a struggle. Not as much of a struggle as it seems on camera. It's always hard to do kind of contouring around there. However, it is a very real issue, and there's a reason it's in my critique list. Now, for me personally, I don't really use the dive function of a dive bezel watch or the bezel of a dive watch. But that being said, if that's something that's important to you, do definitely note that, because that's going to be a big problem. As far as the minute hand length, you know, just for a personal opinion piece here, this, I would have liked to have seen that kicked out, probably actually to go right to the edge of that wave pattern of the dial. I think it's a little bit short, not only from a legibility perspective of looking out for those hashes, but additionally, I think for the visual aesthetic, I think had that just kissed the edge, that would have been a nicer touch there as far as the length. And then finally, just a personal aesthetic piece of the bracelet. As you can see here, it has a sharp edge, and I don't mean sharp to the touch, but as far as the visual, I would have preferred if that was broken with a chamfer. I would have actually probably preferred had they gone with a brushing along the side and then just a polished chamfer accent to get a little polish touch there. I think visually it looks a little more elegant and a little more refined. This, I think, keeps with the tool kind of aesthetic, but with an otherwise so refined watch, I think that would have taken it up a notch there. So where does that leave us overall? At the end of the day, I gotta say, nitpicking aside, this watch is simply amazing. I have been absolutely blown away. I've been impressed with all of the Henry Archer watches I've seen to date, and this one is so far my favorite yet. I'm looking very forward to the Vesterhof that we'll be seeing here shortly, but that being said, as of now, this is my favorite Henry Archer to date, and I already own the Nordsos as well as some others there. So that's definitely, I think, very encouraging. If you like the style of this, I can't readily think of a watch that in terms of finishing and overall packaging at sub $500 that can upstage this one. So if you like the aesthetic, don't hesitate to pull the trigger. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy it, as always, do tap that like button. And if you haven't already done so, smash that subscribe button. Finally, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. With the whole host of colors here, which one's your favorite? Do you like the style? Is this your favorite model? All that kind of good stuff. Thanks for watching.